Hotboi's luck has finally run out. A judge just handed down a sentence that could take him off the streets for good. From petty crimes to serious charges, his rap sheet runs deep.
I used to just still take stuff like that. I used to just take stuff. I used to snatch iPhones like that.
But this time he has roped his baby mama and his young child into his mess. Let's break it down. The baby mama drama that ended everything.
Florida rapper Hotboii found himself in a familiar situation in the back of a police cruiser after officers say that he brought a gun and scaled a fence to get into a school parking lot.
So picture this. It's 3:40 in the morning on July 9th, 2025, and Hotboii gets arrested in Doral, Florida for firearm possession and trespassing on school property. Now, on the surface, that might sound like just another rapper making bad decisions, but when you dig deeper into what really went down that night, it reveals a story that's way more twisted than anything you could script. See, according to his legal team, this whole situation started because his baby mama allegedly dropped his location on social media while he was with his son. Now, in the streets, that's the ultimate violation. You don't put your baby daddy's whereabouts out there for the world to see, especially when he's got ops looking for him. But that's exactly what Asia Monroe allegedly did. And what happened next reads like something straight out of a crime thriller. The lawyer's story goes that two hooded men attempted to break into Hotboi's home while he was with his child. Now, any father worth his salt is going to protect his seed by any means necessary, and that's exactly what Hotboii did. He grabbed his piece and his son, and they got the hell out of Dodge. But here's where it gets crazy. In his attempt to protect his family, he ended up getting caught by the police with that same gun at a school, which is about the worst place you can be caught with a strap as a convicted felon. The optics couldn't be worse. Police surveillance footage showed him scaling a fence and tossing a black Carhartt bag over another fence, and inside that bag was a Glock 45 9mm handgun.
According to police, Hotboii scaled a fence on the south end of the school and was later spotted on surveillance footage tossing a black Carhartt bag over a fence connected to a fancy community adjacent to the campus.
When you're on probation like Hotboii was, getting caught with a gun is already a major violation. But getting caught with one on school property, that's a whole different level of trouble that can put you away for a long, long time. Now, Hotboii was released the next day after posting a $2,500 bond, which might seem like he caught a break. But anyone who knows the system knows that low bond amounts sometimes mean they're just giving you enough rope to hang yourself. The real consequences come later in the courtroom, where judges don't play games with repeat offenders who bring guns to schools. But here's what really gets me about this whole situation. If his lawyer's story is true, then Hotboii was basically set up by someone who should have had his back the most. The mother of his child, the person who's supposed to be his ride or die, allegedly put him and their son in danger by broadcasting their location to the world. In the hood, we got a saying, keep your circle small and your mouth smaller. But when the people in your inner circle start moving like your enemies, that's when you know you're really in trouble. The street's been talking about this situation heavy, and the reaction's been mixed. Some people saying Hotboii was just protecting his family and got caught up in a bad situation. Others saying he should have known better than to be moving with a gun while on probation, especially after everything he'd already been through with the law. But what everybody can agree on is that getting your location leaked by your baby mama is some next level betrayal that goes against every code in the streets. What makes this even more tragic is that this arrest represents Hotboi's 5th arrest in 7 years, showing a pattern that the court's definitely gonna notice. When you keep finding yourself in similar situations, judges start to lose sympathy real quick. And when you're already on probation from a previous case, any new charges can result in not just time for the new offense, but also time for violating your probation term. The fact that children were involved makes this situation even more serious. His lawyer emphasized that Hotboii was trying to protect his son when this all went down, and any parent can understand that protective instinct. But the law don't care about your good intentions when you're a convicted felon caught with a gun on school property. The judge is going to see the charges, not the circumstances that led to them. The timing of this arrest couldn't have been worse for Hotboi's career either. He had just been released in September 2024 after serving over 2 years on RICO charges and was trying to rebuild his life and his music career. He had been dropping new music and seemed to be getting his life back on track. But this July 2025 incident might have just derailed all of that progress. So how exactly did he get entangled in a RICO charge? Federal cases and street politics. Now that y'all understand how Hotboi's story might be ending, let's rewind and talk about the case. That really changed everything. The RICO charges that had him locked up for over 2 years and showed the world that he wasn't just a rapper, but allegedly the leader of a whole gang organization. This is where we really start to see how deep Hotboii was in the streets and how his music career got tangled up with some serious criminal allegations. It all started back in July 2021 when Hotboii was arrested as part of Operation X-Force, a massive 9-month investigation that brought down 34 people, including including another Orlando rapper named 9 Lock 9. But this wasn't just any regular drug bust or gang sweep. This was a full-scale RICO investigation, and when the feds start throwing around RICO charges, you know they've been watching and building a case for a minute. RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, and it's the same law they used to take down the mob back in the day. When prosecutors bring RICO charges, they're not just saying you committed individual crimes, they're saying you were part of an ongoing criminal enterprise, which carries way heavier penalties. We're talking about potential 30-year sentences, the kind of time that can end your whole life. According to the authorities, Hotboii was allegedly the leader of the 438 gang based in Orlando's Silver Star Road area, and they were in a violent feud with a rival gang called the Army Gang, allegedly led by Glock 9. This wasn't just some rap beef that got blown out of proportion. Investigators linked this feud to over 30 shootings and several homicides, including the deaths of innocent bystanders who had nothing to do with the street politics. The really tragic part is how this gang war affected innocent people. 16-year-old Tavia King, the niece of Orlando City Commissioner Regina Hill, and Ocoee High School football star Dexter Rentz Jr., who had a scholarship to the University of Louisville, both lost their lives as a result of this ongoing violence. These were kids with futures, young people who had nothing to do with the streets, but they became casualties in a war they never signed up for. But here's where it gets really interesting from a legal perspective. The prosecution's case against Hotboii was primarily built on two things: his Instagram posts and a gun found in his car. The prosecutors claimed that his social media activity, particularly posts featuring guns and lyrics referencing the 438 gang, constituted using electronic communication to promote gang activity. They also charged him with firearm possession after finding a gun in his vehicle while he was attending a friend's funeral. Now, this is where the case gets really complicated, because you got this intersection of art and real life that's become a major issue in hip-hop prosecutions. How do you separate someone's artistic expression from actual criminal activity? When a rapper talks about guns and gangs in their music or on social media, is that promoting criminal activity or just reflecting their environment? Hotboii's attorney, Lyle Mason, argued that 438 wasn't a gang at all, but just a hashtag representing Hotboii's neighborhood in the Pine Hills area of Orlando. Mason compared Hotboii's actions to how legendary rappers like the Notorious Big and Kodak Black promoted their music, saying he wasn't promoting a gang, he was promoting his label and his music. That's what he was doing. It's equivalent to Biggie Smalls or to Kodak Black or any major artist promoting their music. The defense also argued that the gun found in Hotboii's car belonged to his security team and was for protection against threats from rival gangs. This is actually a common situation in the rap game. When you're beefing with other crews, you need protection, but hiring security with guns can sometimes create legal problems if something goes wrong. What made this case even more serious was the connection to his rival 9 Lock 9 and the Army Gang. The investigation revealed a pattern of retaliatory violence that had been escalating for years. On April 14, 2020, Demetrius Cox, associated with the Army Gang, fatally shot Wolf Luther King Luma, who was linked to the 438 gang, at a house party. This set off a cycle of revenge that would claim multiple lives over the following months. The violence escalated to public spaces, including a shootout at the mall at Millennia in Orlando, where the 438 gang allegedly targeted 9 Lock 9. While nobody was killed in that incident, it showed that this beef was spilling over into places where regular civilians could get hurt, which is when law enforcement really started paying attention. The FBI and local authorities launched Operation X-Force specifically to address this escalating violence. The investigation lasted 9 months and resulted in 34 arrests, showing just how extensive the alleged criminal organization was. This wasn't just a few friends rapping about the streets, according to prosecutors. This was a sophisticated criminal enterprise with multiple members engaging in various illegal activities. Hotboii was initially held on a $750,000 bond, which shows how seriously the courts took these charges. When judges set bonds that high, they're sending a message that they consider the defendant a serious flight risk or a danger to the community. For someone who was just 21 years old at the time, that's an incredibly serious situation to be in. But here's where Hotboii's story takes an interesting turn. After spending over 2 years in jail, his RICO charges were eventually dropped as part of a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to a single count of conspiracy and was sentenced to time served plus 5 years of probation. This was actually a major victory for his legal team, because RICO convictions can result in decades in prison. The success of his defense strategy shows how important it is to have good legal representation when you're facing serious federal charges. His lawyer's argument that 438 was just a neighborhood hashtag rather than a criminal gang ultimately convinced prosecutors to accept a much lesser charge. When Hotboii was released in September 2024, he immediately dropped a song called 9/11's First Day Out, which gained 1.2 million views in a short time, showing that his fan base had remained loyal throughout his incarceration. This is actually pretty common in hip-hop. Sometimes legal troubles can actually increase an artist's street credibility and fan fan base. But the RICO case wasn't Hotboii's only run-in with the law during his career. According to court records, he had been arrested multiple times between 2018 and 2025, including arrests for gun possession, marijuana possession, and resisting an officer. This pattern of arrests created a situation where any new charges would be viewed more seriously by the courts. In February 2025, just months after his release, Hotboii was arrested again in Orlando on unclear charges, with some reports suggesting it was for probation violations. This arrest showed that even after beating the RICO case, Hotboii was still struggling to stay out of trouble with the law. The really unfortunate thing about Hotboii's legal troubles is how they overshadowed what was actually a promising music career. He had signed with major labels including Geffen and Interscope Records and had collaborated with big names like Future, Lil Baby, and Polo G. His song Don't Need Time had achieved platinum certification, showing that he had real talent and commercial appeal. But the streets have a way of pulling you back in, and for Hotboii, it seems like every time he tried to focus on his music career, legal troubles kept derailing his progress. The RICO case cost him over 2 years of his prime career time, and now this latest arrest in July 2025 threatens to undo all the progress he made since his release. But it's important to understand how his upbringing and early experiences shaped the man who would eventually face these serious legal challenges. Because the truth is, Hotboii's story isn't unique. It's the story of many young men from similar backgrounds who find themselves caught between their artistic aspirations and the realities of street life. From Pine Hills to prison, to really understand how Hotboii ended up facing a potential life sentence, we gotta go all the way back to the beginning, back to Pine Hills, Orlando, where a young boy named Javari Latre Walker first learned that sometimes you gotta take what you need to survive. This is the part of the story that explains everything else, because the streets don't just happen to you overnight. They shape you from the time you're small, teaching you lessons that stay with you for the rest of your life. Javari Latre Walker was born on June 13th, 2000 in Orlando, Florida, growing up in the Pine Hills neighborhood as one of 17 siblings. Now let me paint you a picture of what it's like growing up as one of 17 kids in a single-parent household in one of Orlando's roughest neighborhoods. We're talking about a situation where resources are stretched so thin that basic necessities become luxuries, where every meal is a blessing, and where children learn independence way too early because mama can't be everywhere at once. Hotboii's father wasn't consistently in the picture, leaving his mother to essentially raise all those kids as a single parent. Imagine the stress, the struggle, the impossible decisions that woman had to make every single day. When the lights get cut off and the rent's due, and you got 17 kids looking at you for answers, that's the kind of pressure that breaks most people. Pine Hills ain't the Disney World that tourists see when they visit Orlando. This is the other side of the city, where poverty and crime created an environment that forced young people to make survival decisions from an early age. When you're growing up in these conditions, the streets start looking like your best option way before you're old enough to understand the real consequences. Hotboii started rapping at just 7 years old, which shows that even as a little kid, he was looking for ways to express himself and potentially escape his circumstances. Music became his outlet, his way of processing everything he was seeing and experiencing in his environment. But at the same time, he was also learning other lessons about how to survive. The first time Hotboii stole something, he was only 4 years old. He describes the incident vividly.
We was in the store, right? It's me, my mom, and my daddy. So we in the store. So you know how when you come to the line, you get to pick the candy when you go to the register and stuff. Get to pick your candy. So my mom was like, hurry up, you better hurry up, we're gonna leave you. Better hurry up. I still don't know what I want. I'm licking. They leaving, I grab the candy and I gotta catch up. I end up stealing it.
That story might sound innocent, just a 4-year-old taking candy, but it actually reveals something deeper about the environment Hotboii was growing up in. When survival instincts kick in that early, when a child learns that sometimes you have to take what you need because nobody else is going to make sure you get it, that's a lesson that shapes everything that comes after. In 2016, with help from his mother, Hotboii began uploading music to SoundCloud and YouTube. This was back when streaming was still relatively new, when artists could build a following from their bedroom if they had the talent and the hustle. But for Hotboii, that period of creative growth was about to be interrupted by the harsh realities of street life. As Hotboii got older, his criminal activity escalated. By the time he was a teenager, he had moved from petty theft to more serious crimes like snatching iPhones and eventually burglarizing homes.
I used to just like steal, take stuff like that. I used to just take stuff. I used to snatch iPhones like that.
At age 15, Hotboii received his first burglary charge, which led to him spending 2 years in a juvenile detention program from 2016 to 2018. But here's what's interesting about this period. Instead of breaking him down, it actually became the time when he seriously committed to his music career. During his time in detention, he wrote many of the songs that would later appear on his debut mixtape, Put the Fan On. The song Graham House Blues from that mixtape gives us a raw, unfiltered look at what that experience was like. In the track, he raps about the reality of being locked up as a teenager, the isolation isolation and the determination to make something of himself despite his circumstances. The lyrics reveal someone who was using that time to reflect on his life and plan for a different future. When Hotboii was released from juvenile detention, he was faced with the same choice that faces every young person coming out of the system: go back to the streets or find another way. For a while, it seemed like music might be that other way. When Hotboii was released in 2018, he returned to the streets with a new sense of purpose. In 2019, he dropped YGs, which he described as a detailed walk through his experiences and survival tactics in the street. This track started building local buzz and showed that his time in detention had sharpened his skills rather than dulled his ambition. His big breakthrough came with the song Don't Need Time, released in April 2020. This track was written in memory of his recently deceased friend Wolf, and it showed a more vulnerable, introspective side of Hotboii that resonated with listeners. The song's success proved that he had the talent to make it in the music industry legitimately. The track accumulated more than 9 million streams on Spotify and 24 million YouTube views within 5 months, and eventually received platinum certification from the RIAA. A remix featuring Lil Baby further boosted the song's popularity and Hotboii's profile in the hip-hop world. But even as his music career was taking off, Hotboii couldn't completely escape the streets that had shaped him. His lyrics often reflected the reality of his environment, and his social media presence included references to the 438 area code and lifestyle that would later become central to his legal troubles. He released his first mixtape, Cut Da Fan on May 22, 2020, which included collaborations with established artists like Please, LPB Pootie, and Rico Cartel. The project was praised by publications like Pitchfork and Audiomack for its authentic street narratives and melodic approach to contemporary hip-hop. The success of his music led to a recording contract with Interscope Records, Geffen Records, and Rebel Music, giving him access to major label resources and distribution. He followed up with collaborations with high-profile artists like Future on Nobody Special and Polo G on Goat Talk 2, showing that the industry was taking notice of his talent. His debut studio album, Double O Baby, was released on December 22, 2020, followed by Life of a Hotboii in 2021 and Blinded by Death in 2022. The latter album entered the Billboard 200 chart at number 89, marking a significant achievement for an artist from his background. But success in the music industry doesn't automatically erase the influences and connections that shaped your early life. For many artists from street backgrounds, there's always tension between their past and their future, between loyalty to where they came from and the need to move beyond those circumstances for their own survival. Hotboii's association with the 438 gang and his ongoing legal troubles showed how difficult it can be to completely separate yourself from the environment that made you. Even when you achieve success, the streets have a way of following you, especially when you continue to represent them in your music and social media presence. The tragedy of Hotboii's story is that he clearly had the talent and work ethic to build a sustainable music career. His streaming numbers, chart positions, and collaborations with major artists proved that he could compete at the highest levels of the industry. But the combination of his criminal history and ongoing legal troubles created a pattern that became increasingly difficult to break. His multiple arrests between 2018 and 2025, including charges for gun possession, drug possession, and eventually the RICO case, showed a pattern of behavior that courts take very seriously when determining sentences. Each arrest made the next one more serious, creating a cycle where the consequences kept getting higher. The influence of his upbringing can be seen throughout his music career. Songs like Graham House Blues and Don't Need Time draw directly from his personal experiences with incarceration, loss, and street life. His ability to translate those experiences into compelling music was his greatest strength as an artist, but it also meant that he was constantly walking the line between art and autobiography. In interviews, Hotboii often spoke about feeling a responsibility to represent for his neighborhood and the people who came from similar circumstances. This sense of loyalty and representation is deeply embedded in hip-hop culture, but it can also create pressure to maintain connections and behaviors that might not be in an artist's best interest. The final irony of Hotboii's story is that his attempt to protect his son, the very thing that led to his July 2025 arrest, might be the most relatable part of his entire journey. After everything he'd been through, all the legal troubles and time in jail, he was still a father first when it mattered most. But even that paternal instinct, that most basic human drive to protect your child, ended up creating the circumstances that might send him away for the rest of his life. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.